So where do we start?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Afternoon, Ayana. Well, let me just start with a brief introduction of myself. My name is Ashara Ekundayo. I'm an independent curator, a maker, uh, a cultural theologian, and sometimes I spend time in my studio in meditation with screen prints, with zine making, with altar making. I'm a curator who likes to make things occasionally. But this really speaks to, I have a practice that is rooted in memory and the creation of space. And so when you and I were in Dakar, we started talking about what the opportunity would be here during this, I guess, during the art fair.
Convening.
This convening of beautiful souls and makers and thinkers and curators and gallerists, and how still artist residency has shown up over these years, and what it means to be intentional about creating space. Because you are a space maker, because you also operate in a framework, through a particular technology that captures a moment. And those of us who time travel, we move across the continents, across the waters, across the planet, in ways in which we are simultaneously in the past, the present, and the future, that the opportunity for us to be intentional with space, particularly for those of us who live in the United States right now and operate organizations that are in the United States that are under attack, that the archive is under attack, that the truth is under attack, that we are intentional about saying we want the archive to continue to be alive, and that on our watch, we will make time, space, and commit resources and opportunities to connect with each other. And so my platform, Artist as First Responder, wants to continue to widen our reach and the concept that artists show up first. There isn't any movement on this planet that is not fueled and led by artists' work, by our creative force, whether or not we call ourselves artists. And that we show up first in celebration and in catastrophe. And so artist residencies are an act of resistance. So our artist residency and our partnerships with the Black Curators Lab and Black Space Residency want to be in conversation with other spaces that are intentional about creating opportunities for artists, and for us in particular, Black artists, and we can talk about the political identity of Blackness, but for Black artists to have time to rest, to create, to contemplate, to consider, and to be revolutionary, and whatever that means, in taking care of themselves in a precious way, in a way that is collectively liberatory for our communities. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons that I was so humbled and honored and also touched by your um, offering to help to sponsor this convening, but it felt less about sponsorship and more felt like you were tapping in, um, and prompting the possibility for us to tap into each other. And because it's true, I love this idea, the artist as first responder. I mean, it's so because the thing is, some of us, our creative impulse is so essential. It's so crucial. It's so it's how we make sense of how we can not just, well, I'll speak personally. The work that I do allows me to be still at all, right? I think um, we talk about biological memory. We spent time talking about memory and place. And I think that a lot of us ultimately are talking about biological memories and traumas that are residing in our cellular, at the cellular level. So I think that I there's an anxiousness that asks me to, or forces me to solve a problem so I can feel less anxious, or to at least address what the anxiety is. And then if I can see it, if I can identify what that anxiety, what is making me anxious, and I can do a step towards addressing it or solving it or making or calming it down, and my heartbeat goes down, right? Like I have a physio. I know when a word I can, and I want to say this with humility. I often know when a work is going to resonate because it literally kind of like I have a physiological response. I feel like I recognize the work more than I actually am making the work. So, but anyway, the point is that what we're doing is not. No one in this room would ever consider it decorative, right? What we're doing is essential, and to use the term artist as first responder is to really get to the fact that we're dealing with violence, we're dealing with trauma, we're dealing with wounds, we're dealing with healing, we're dealing with like this is sexy. I love a sexy situation. I mean, we're sexy, so we should be in sexy places. But this is not like frivolity. This is core, crucial conversations in a beautiful wine glass. So, because, but that's also medicine and a weird for some of us, and and it's unfortunate that we're treating our anxieties, but many of us have found the ability to treat our anxieties in a constructive way through our practice. So I've realized that I'm looking around the room, and I'm seeing mostly, if not exclusively, creatives. We're here for a reason.
What you're also speaking to, this witnessing, has to do with sometimes when people say or they ask, "What do you do?" Like we often have this ethereal idea of what we think curators do. We think it's a very sexy job, and then if you add a curator who's also a gallerist, people think that literally there's some magic elves that show up and like hang art, and then we get to have this very glamorous life. But they don't really know that essentially this essential work is, and I say this to people often, that I chop wood and I carry water. I really went to fetch the water. And part of my personal interest in your artwork, your photography in particular, has to do with water, has to do with memory, and that water holds the memory. That these bodies are water bodies and they hold memory. And so, as a memory worker, as someone who's particularly concerned with the labor of Black women and film artists, in terms of joy as well, because we often talk about, the reaction or first response as something to trauma, as you mentioned, but there also is a joy-informed pedagogy that we also have access to that is also part of our legacy, and that we tap that too. And so when there is an opportunity for us to make space for each other, to actually care for each other, and subsequently also care for our siblings across the African diaspora, I think there's a sweet space there that offers us an opportunity to, I think, dig into the pain points, and I think that, in particular, my travels over the years to South Africa, I've had conversations about Blackness and empire and how that shows up culturally, between American artists and creatives and folks throughout the African diaspora. So when we who have space and resources and time to create space to be engaged with our siblings throughout the African diaspora, despite the empire, I think it's a special thing. I think it's a generous and kind offering where we also get to investigate ourselves and our privilege around that.
Absolutely. And we don't have 1,000 hours to have this conversation because we do want to honor the questions in the room. But I think as we draw to close of this particular moment and then take it outside and keep fellowshipping, I want to talk about, I want to ask you a question, and then I also want to prompt something in the room. You know, people keep saying to me as a creator, you're doing something innovative. You're creating spaces for artists, and I'm like, no, like, Bartholomew Togo was creating in Douala. As far as I've known, as long as I've known, artists have been creating spaces for other artists. It's just that we tend to look in the look towards the fellowships and the foundations and the collectors because it is a little shinier to be associated with. Sometimes if there's that part where I will receive support, a certain kind of patronage as a form of of provenance, not only for the career but for ourselves individually. But that doesn't disqualify from the reality that artists have been supporting each other. I mean, I don't know anyone who hasn't actually been supported in one way or another by another artist, whether it's by being led by example, whether it's about someone helping you, giving you information that you didn't already have, giving you the cheat codes to telling you to inviting you, being someone's plus one to an event. That's patronage. We've been patronizing each other as artists. I mean, I don't know an artist who wasn't patronized by another artist. So for me, you know, um, it was people whispering in my ears at openings about who it was Derek Adams, for instance, who was whispering in my ear early on. It was Hank Willis Thomas whispering in my ear early on. It was Simone and Jami, whispering in my ear over a long cigarette. It was Ogwin Wazor. It was little conversations and seeds that were being planted in me over long that got me to this point where I said I have space and I have time and I want to do this. But what for you? How did you decide to dedicate unselfishly your time and resources?
Thank you for that question. I have had the gift of being mentored by Black women since I was very young, starting with my mother, but being not someone who I did not go to art school.
Same.
Did not go to art school. Don't have an art school pedigree and an MFA. But what I do have is a deep sense of curiosity and a deep commitment to loving Black people. And because I have been mentored by Black women, mostly through the academy, they gave me information. Sometimes it was the cheat code. And sometimes at a certain point, when I've unconsciously and consciously made a decision to be an independent curator, I've never worked for a museum. I've worked in museums, but I've never worked for one. But when you make that kind of decision, at a certain point, you hit a wall where someone has to just come get you and say, sit right here, go right here. And so when that has been modeled for me, then that allows me to model that and pull other folks, young folks, toward me. Because the question is, what do you do? What does that mean to be a curator? And it has not been visual art always as well. It started with poets, it started with Black writers who said, we have to learn how to use our words and speak truth to power in a way in which they can never, ever take that away from you. So we went from writers to independent filmmakers and sometimes to the dance community as well. So, what happened for me was there was a mentorship that was happening for me watching my siblings, watching how they were doing it. People who, for instance, that I knew before they went to art school and before they became rock stars, that we were just friends, like just bouncing ideas off of each other. So for me, it was Zanelli Mahole, who I've known for 28 years, or Takwase Dyson, who I've known for 25 years. And so just, being able to like watch them and applaud and support in the ways in which I could, but mostly being able to educate folks in my community and to teach my children and my grandchildren who call me Gogo about what it means to travel the world and be with other artists who are committed to loving ourselves and committed to being righteously creative in the midst of this. This is our time. We were made for this.
Yeah.
We were made for this. It's like, you're ready. So do not be discouraged and do not be defeated by it. The artist in you is going to show up and we are going to win.
Thank you. You know we could go on and on.
You could go on.
But if I can ask